It's called a life-changing day.
You got to die now. You got to be willing to give up who you are now for what you can become. You got to see yourself every day. I can do this.
These visuals are not from Diwali. These are rockets being fired during the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine. Have been fired by Palestinian militant groups into Israel. Have been fired by Palestinian militant groups into Israel.
These aren't fireworks. These are Israeli Air Force's air defense system Iron Dome at work. Amid the tensions between Israel and Palestine, militant group Hamas fired about Israel's air defense system Iron Dome withstood more scepter only if the incoming rocket risks hitting a populated area or
צבע אדום.
לשקם אותם. במקביל, אנחנו במאמץ של הגנה, אוויר, ים, יבשתי, טילים ורקטות, שאתם אחראים לו. אנחנו במאמץ של הגנה, אוויר, ים, יבשה, הגנה מפני טילים ורקטות, לשקם אותם. במקביל, אנחנו במאמץ של הגנה, אוויר, ים, יבשתי, טילים ורקטות, שאתם אחראים לו. אנחנו במאמץ של הגנה, אוויר, ים, יבשה, הגנה מפני טילים ורקטות,
This would have resulted
Iron Dome battery, one of many that are deployed all over Israel, defending Israeli civilians. Let me give you Iron Dome battery, one of many that are deployed all over Israel, defending Israel.
זה כיפת ברזל נראה לי, לא? כן. וואי, וואי, וואי. זה קטלני, זה נראה כמו מדוזה. זה כיפת ברזל נראה לי, לא? כן. וואי, וואי.
לפני כיפת ברזל היה מה זה מפחיד, אבל היום אנחנו ממש בביטחון, אנחנו מרגישים את הכיפה, בום, בום, איך היא מורידה אותם, ואחר כך יוצאים, רואים את כל הזה.
לשקם אותם. במקביל, אנחנו במאמץ של הגנה, אוויר, ים, יבשתי, טילים ורקטות.
These visuals are not from Diwali. These are rockets being fired during the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine. More than 2,000 rockets have been fired by Palestinian militant groups into Israel. This would have resulted in a huge loss for Israel, but for the Iron Dome, a defense system built by Israel,
one of many that are deployed all over Israel, defending Israeli civilians. Let me give you a few stats. We've intercepted more than 1,000 rockets fired from Gaza, Israel. We're talking about more than 3,000 rockets that have been fired already, and the interception rate of this amazing system that has been saving Israeli lives by dozen is more than 90%.
זה הכיפת ברזל נראה לי, לא? כן. וואי, וואי, וואי. איזה קטלני, זה נראה כמו מדוזה.
לפני כיפת ברזל היה מה זה מפחיד, אבל היום אנחנו ממש בביטחון, אנחנו מרגישים וגם שומעים את הכיפה, בום, בום, איך היא מורידה אותם, ואחר כך יוצאים, רואים את כל הזה.
These aren't fireworks. These are Israeli Air Force's air defense system Iron Dome at work. Amid the tensions between Israel and Palestine, militant group Hamas fired about rockets from Gaza at Israel's city Tel Aviv on Tuesday night. But Israel's air defense system Iron Dome withstood most of it. The system has been in use since 2011 and has helped reduce casualties from rocket attacks against Israeli cities. And it fires an interceptor only if the incoming rocket risks hitting a populated area or an important infrastructure there. It works. The interceptors of the system are fired vertically, either from mobile units or a static launch site. They
צבע אדום בירושלים.
לשקם אותם. במקביל, אנחנו במאמץ של הגנה, אוויר, ים, יבשה. הגנה מפני טילים ורקטות, שאתם אחראים לו במידה מוחלטת. מגינים על אזרחי מדינת ישראל, ואלה ימים לא קלים. הזדמנות לחזק אותם ולהביע הערכה כלפיהם, ואנחנו נעשה הכל, כדי להגן עליהם באופן המוצלח ביותר.
לא לקום, לא לקום. הנה, נפל.
We've been protecting Israeli civilians now for the last more than 24 hours against an almost unprecedented barrage of rockets against our civilians. The Iron Dome system has been delivering and has saved countless Israeli lives. But at the end of the day, the rocket fire that we saw towards central Israel, towards Tel Aviv, and really the heart of Israel, is of course totally unacceptable, something that the IDF will not stand for. And we are planning and conducting operations to make Hamas pay the price for their aggression against Israel.
I know you're launching airstrikes. What about a ground assault into Gaza? Is that likely?
I wouldn't get ahead of ourselves. I'd say that there's an abundance of military targets that we have planned, we have investigated and prepared ourselves to be able to strike them. All of those are pure classified military targets belonging to either the Hamas or the Islamic Jihad, and we've been attacking those targets over the last 24 hours. And
Can you confirm there have been civilian casualties?
I can say that we will never reach zero, and in any military activity in a densely populated urban area, just like Gaza, and in an area where the terrorist enemy uses civilians as their human shields and makes it virtually impossible to totally distinguish between enemies and non-combatants, it's a very difficult situation. But what we are doing, we knock down large, significant infrastructure. Then there's a process of warning and making sure that the target area is clear of non-combatants. And as you saw, a large military or a large structure that served Hamas's military purposes was hit, and there are no reports of casualties because we made sure that it was clear of civilians and non-combatants before we took it down. That's the level of our commitment. Are we going to be 100% perfect in this regard? I don't think that we will, but I can assure you and everybody watching that we take the issue seriously, and any reports of non-combatants involved in the killing are, of course, something that we want to avoid, which is, of course, totally different from how our enemies are operating, who are trying to cause civilian casualties in Israel. And unfortunately, we now have Israelis dead and wounded in the last hours of.
This is my channel, this is my blog. Just right here, SAZU and S. My channel, please subscribe my channel. I'm a blogger, video blogger. Just search here, right here to my name, my profile. Just call me on my all videos, any videos. You can easily find me. Please subscribe my YouTube channel. Thanks to all of you. This is my channel, this is my blog. Just right here, SAZU and S.